Graphing inequalities is just going to help you practice your graphs of lines. So it's just helping your graphs of lines with one twist. We're going to shade a whole solution region at the end. All right, so it says, step one, make sure you write it as y equals mx plus b. Determine if our line should be dotted or solid. I'm going to show you what that means. Graph your line. We're going to give test back at the end. So I will do that at the end. And then we're going to test a point to see where to shade our inequality. So here's my first inequality. Do you see how it almost looks like an equation, right? The only thing that I need to do is write it as y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Now it's just an equation. So step 2 says, decide if it's going to be a dotted or solid line. You look at this inequality symbol, and if it says strictly less than, it's going to be dotted. On number 2, see how it says greater than or equal to? If it could equal the line, like it could equal $50, you're going to do a straight line because it can include the line as part of your solution region. But let's say that you cannot spend $50, you have to spend less than $50. You're going to represent that with a dotted line. So this is what's going to tell us dotted. This is what's going to tell us solid. So if it's strictly less than or strictly greater than. And then it says just graph your line. So I'm going to graph 2/3 x minus 4. I'm going to start at -4 on the y-axis, right? Because that's my y-intercept. And I'm just going to go up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3 into positive world, up 2 over 3, down 2 over 3. This would be a nice graph to have a ruler for. So maybe I should pass out some rulers. It's easier to do a dotted line, I think, with a ruler. See if I can make that a dotted line. Who needs a ruler because yours is on? It's easier with rulers. You ruler? You have one, you have one? Yeah. You got a ruler up there? A ruler? All right, you have a ruler. So then, now you have to decide where to shade. It says to test a point. I never test a point. I just look at what it says. Does y have to be bigger or smaller than the line itself? Y has to be smaller, right? The shark's mouth always faces the bigger amount. So where are my y values smaller? My y values are smaller underneath the line. So if it says y is smaller, you're going to shade below. So this is my solution region, this lower triangle. Anything in here, when I plug it in, will make my inequality true. So if I just want to do 0, -10, if I plug that in, it makes this a true statement. Anything in this region will work. This point will not work. This is the point 6, 0. It lies on a dotted line. When I plug it in, it's not going to make it true. So that's it. That's all there is to graphing an inequality. It's one extra step than what you've been doing. So it's going to help reinforce your linear equation skills. All right, my next one, y equals x plus 1. This was tricky for some of you on the unit test. What is the slope if there's nothing written in front of the x? The slope is 1 over 1. So I'm going to start at 1 on the y-axis and just go up 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. These are both positive slopes. I'm going to do a solid line this time because it says greater than or equal to. And where do you think I'm going to shade this time? Yeah, why? Because it says my y values have to be greater than. The shark's mouth is eating the y values. I want to eat the bigger y values. The bigger y values are up here on the y-axis. So that tells me that I'm going to shade everything that's above that line. Those are my solution region. That's what I can purchase, or that's what satisfies this situation. And if you want to shade it just in pencil, or if you want to grab a colored pencil from the box over on the shelf, but I threw in examples 3 and 4 because some of us still didn't know how to do this type of special line on our test. So this will help review that linear skill. If it's y equals 8, what type of special line is that? All the y values have to be 8. So it's actually a horizontal line if all the y values have to be 8. Is it going to be a solid or dotted line? This less than or equal to 8, so I'm going to make it a solid line at 8. Oops. So all the y values have to be less than or equal to 8. Where would I want to shade? Where are the y values less than 8? Below that line. So there's a lot of solution region, right? Anywhere below 8 is part of my solution region for this inequality. We're going to see that one with like that Freiburg Fair thing. The number of food items, right, had to be less than or equal to 6. So that would be a horizontal line shaded below the 6. All right, what about an x equals equation? X equals 0. That's a vertical line because it's undefined. So it's the only time when it's x equals. So that's when Slope Dude falls off the mountain and he goes, undefined. This is going to be a dotted line because it says x has to be strictly greater than 0. So I'm going to do the best I can to show dotted line at 0. I just kind of break the axis sideways a little bit just to show that it's dotted. And then if x has to be greater than 0, where should I shade my solution? The x values here are bigger, 2, 4, 6, 8. So I want to shade everything to the right of that inequality. So it's building one extra step on your graphing lines skill. It really should have been part of last unit, but we just didn't have those extra couple days, so we just made it a mini unit this week. You may end up seeing some inequalities on the PSAT, so it's a great day to get it into your tool bucket. Can I turn the page? So guess what? These were just linear inequalities. Now we're going to graph system of inequalities. So it's just more than 1. It's not any more difficult. It's just more than 1 at a time. So I recommend doing this with 2 different colors because we're going to have part of it shaded in black and part of it shaded in red, and we're looking for where they overlap. So let me get you another color. Great. I'm going to just circle this first line so I know I'm doing this in my black pen. Y equals 2x minus 3. All right, so I'm going to think ahead. This is going to be a solid line because it says y is greater than or equal to. So I'm going to start at -3 on the y-axis, -3 on the y-axis, and I'm going to go up 2 over 1, right? Because I can make the slope 2 over 1. So up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1 solid line. So draw in your solid line. But when you do your shading, I would do your shading fairly light because we're going to have to graph a whole other line on our graph in a minute. So we don't want to make it like black. Do I want to shade above or below? What's the inequality tell me? Y has to be what? Y is greater than. So I want to shade where the y values are greater, right? Above. So I'm going to shade it kind of light because I want to be able to graph my other line in a minute. But this whole region is kind of my black pen. So that is the first part of my solution. I'm looking for an overlapping region. So I need to graph my second line. So I'm going to use my blue colored pencil at x equals 2. So we just reviewed this on the front page. What is it if x equals 2? A vertical line. All right. Solid or dotted? Let's see. X is less than or equal to 2 is solid. So at 2, solid. And X is less than 2. So where are my X values going to be smaller? Do I want to shade to the left of the blue line or to the right of the blue line? If X has to be less than 2. Right, these X values over here are smaller, right? So I'm going to shade a blue region all to the left. And it's kind of hard to tell on my graph, but you want the region that was black and blue. So I've got this tiny triangle that's just black, tiny triangle that's just blue, and then this whole region here is black and blue. So it says to identify your, feasible region. It's this region right here is my solution. All right, so I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to save 3 and 4 for next class because I wanted to have time to go over your test and you do a little analysis of your test. So let's try example 2 together, and then you were going to just try for homework this. No, we're going to skip the 217 guided practice for now. So you've got 2.6 as homework, which is just graphing one of them at a time. I don't think that'll be too much yet. Sure. If there's no slope and no y-intercept written, the slope is, nope, the slope would be 1, but the y-intercept is 0. Maybe that's what you meant. All right, so I start at 0 on the y-axis, and I go up 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Oh, and I should have looked ahead. Should I do a dotted or solid line? Strictly less than, so I need to do a dotted line. So here's my dotted line. Y is less than X. So where are the Y values less than? I want to shade below, right? Y is less than, so that's below. All right, my other line is not set up for me. I need to write it as Y equals. So what can I do to make it Y equals? Just divide by 2. So Y has to be greater than or equal to 3 is what I want to graph in blue, which is actually Y equals 3. So what kind of special line is Y equals 3? Is Y equals horizontal or vertical? Horizontal, and it's going to be solid because greater than or equal to is solid. So here's Y equals 3. And it's going to be above, right? Because Y is greater than or equal to 3. So this is all just blue by itself. This tiny little triangle over here is blue and black. So that is the little region that is actually your overlap solution, the blue with the black. So when it's a system, look on the quiz on Friday, you'll need to indicate the overlap. And tomorrow we kind of miss a day. So we're not spending a whole lot of time on inequalities. We'll do a bunch of practice on Thursday graphing these. And then kind of, you got a homework assignment to do. Those of you that are here tomorrow have two assignments to do. But all right, so that's where I'm stopping on that.